Greetings. Occurred to me that I should probably say something about Nazareth, given that we are Point Loma Nazarene University and that we are an institution of the Church of the Nazarene. And so you'll recall that when Philip told Nathanael that they found the Messiah, Jesus of Nazareth, Nathanael's question was, can anything good come from Nazareth? And Nazareth was kind of a despised town. Nobody expected anybody great to come from there, certainly not the Messiah. Well, when the Church of the Nazarene was started back in 1895, the very first congregation, it was in Los Angeles by a minister named Phineas Bresee. And they were trying to reach out to the neglected of Los Angeles, people that weren't welcome in kind of your uptown churches, and they wanted it to be more than a rescue mission. They really wanted to form a church that ministered to those who were kind of despised, those who were on the margins. And so they came up with the name Church of the Nazarene to emphasize that that was their mission, to minister in places where nobody expected anything good could come from there. And so that spread, and eventually the denomination of the Church of the Nazarene was formed in the early 1900s. And so, and out of that, institutions came. Point Loma started by the Church of the Nazarene in Los Angeles and Pasadena. I believe it was like 1902. Don't quote me on that. But again, the point of the name, Nazareth, can anything good come from there? And so the Church of the Nazarene adopted that, Nazarene, in a way to emphasize that we want to minister in places and to people from places where nobody thinks anything good can come from there. And so Church of the Nazarene, Point Loma Nazarene University, can anything good come from Nazareth? Well, Jesus did. All right, so that's where the name comes from. Now, let's see. I want to continue on in the Gospel of John and pick it up at John chapter 4. And this is the story of the woman at the well, Samaritan woman at the well. And so we'll go ahead and jump in and start reading. Now, when Jesus learned that the Pharisees had heard that Jesus was making and baptizing more disciples than John, although Jesus himself did not baptize, but only his disciples, he left Judea and departed again for Galilee. And he had to pass through Samaria. So he came to a town of Samaria called Sychar, near the field that Jacob had given to his son Joseph. Jacob's well was there, so Jesus, wearied as he was from his journey, was sitting beside the well. It was about the 6th hour. So a couple things here. First of all, Jesus didn't actually have to go through Samaria. That was a choice. It was common practice to go around Samaria when Jews were leaving Jerusalem and going up to Galilee. But Jesus intentionally went through Samaria. Second thing to notice, the time, it's about the 6th hour. So that means it's noon. It's smack in the middle of the day. And then third is that Jesus was tired from the journey. And so he sits by this well. And kind of a side note here, Gospel of John does extremely well at pressing in both directions on Jesus being fully human and fully divine. And so Matthew, Mark, and Luke do this as well, but John does it extremely well. And so here we see Jesus in his full humanity. He is resting. He is tired from this journey. He is at the well. Okay? But we're also going to see Jesus in full divinity. And don't say, well, that's the human side and that's the divine side. No, he's one person, but he is fully two natures, fully human, fully divine. Okay, so we're at the middle of the day at the well. Verse 7, a woman from Samaria came to draw water. Jesus said to her, give me a drink. For his disciples had gone away into the city to buy food. The Samaritan woman said to him, how is it that you, a Jew, ask for a drink from me, a woman of Samaria? For Jews have no dealings with Samaritans. Now, this is unusual, both in the sense that Jesus is dealing with a Samaritan and that he is asking a Samaritan woman for a drink of water. One, if the Samaritans were seen as kind of unclean. And so if she gives Jesus a drink of water, he's going to risk, or he's going to become ritually unclean because the woman would have handled the cup that she gives to him. He'll handle it. And so he'll be ritually defiled, unclean by this Samaritan woman. So it's unusual to have this kind of interaction. And the Samaritan woman recognizes this and trying to figure out, what is this Jewish guy doing asking me for a drink of water? And it's also unusual that Jesus would approach a woman in this type of a setting. So Jesus answered her, "If you knew the gift of God and who it is that is saying to you, 'Give me a drink,' you would have asked him and he would have given you living water." Now, this is quite the response. How is she supposed to know who's asking her for a drink of water? And so how should she know that she should be asking him for living water? She doesn't know who he is, and he hasn't revealed himself to her. So the conversation is kind of starting to go this way a little bit. And verse 11, the woman said to him, "Sir, you have nothing to draw water with, and the well is deep. Where do you get that living water? Are you greater than our father Jacob? He gave us the well and drank from it himself, as did his sons and his livestock." So she's puzzled what Jesus is talking about. How is he going to get this living water? He doesn't even have anything to draw water out of the well. And probably when he says living water, she's thinking fresh water, running water, some type of a stream. 13, Jesus said to her, "Everyone who drinks of this water will be thirsty again," the well water. "But whoever drinks of the water that I will give will never be thirsty again. The water that I will give him will become in him a spring of water welling up to eternal life." And so Jesus promising to be able to give this water, if you will, that becomes a spring of life within the person. Verse 15, the woman said to him, "Sir, give me this water so that I will not be thirsty or have to come here to draw water." The conversation, they're crossing each other. She doesn't know exactly what Jesus is talking about. Living water sounds good. I won't have to keep coming to this well to keep drawing water. So she's still thinking at a very physical level. Jesus is talking about something that is spiritual. Verse 16, conversation goes on. Now Jesus says to her, "Go call your husband and come here." And the woman answered him, "I have no husband." Jesus said to her, "You are right in saying, 'I have no husband,' for you have had 5 husbands, and the one you now have is not your husband. What you said is true." And so Jesus shifts the conversation away from talking about what he could give her to kind of holding up a mirror and saying, "Okay, go get your husband, bring him here." So Jesus is confronting her with her. And she says, "I don't have a husband." And Jesus' response is, "You're right. You've been married 5 times, and the guy you're with now is not your husband. You're speaking truth." Okay, and why would she lie and say that she has no husband? Well, some would say that, she's embarrassed about her situation. And so she doesn't want to acknowledge that she's had 5 husbands and is living with somebody else who's not her husband. And I've even heard some say that maybe she had eyes on Jesus and she was thinking that maybe something could work out with Jesus. I don't know. But the point is, Jesus confronts her with who she is. Oh, maybe one other thing. Remember, this is the middle of the day. And normally people would go to the well in the morning before the sun came up and it was super hot, or at the end of the day after the sun was setting, kind of the cool of the day. And so kind of unusual to be out here in the middle of the day at the well. And maybe that points in the direction of her shame that she's going to go to the well expecting nobody to be there. But that's when she's going to go to the well, trying to avoid crowds, trying to avoid people because of shame about her situation. We don't know why she had 5 husbands. We don't know whether she's been widowed 5 times. We don't know whether there's divorces in there. But there seems to be shame, and she's at the well in the middle of the day hoping to avoid people. And here is Jesus asking her for water and offering her living water, but she can't figure out what he's talking about, and neither could we. The woman said to him, "Sir, I perceive that you are a prophet. Our fathers worshipped on this mountain, but you say that in Jerusalem is the place where people ought to worship." So she kind of shifts to the Jew Samaritan issue and in terms of where's the right place to worship. And Jesus said to her, "Woman, believe me, the hour is coming. Neither on this mountain nor in Jerusalem will you worship the Father. You worship what you do not know. We worship what we know, for salvation is from the Jews. But the hour is coming, and now here, when the true worshipers will worship the Father in spirit and in truth, for the Father is seeking such people to worship him. God is spirit, and those who worship him must worship in spirit and truth." The woman said to him, "I know that Messiah is coming, he who is called Christ. When he comes, he will tell us all these things." Jesus said to her, "I who speak to you am he." So Jesus reveals himself that he is the Messiah. Just then his disciples came back. They marveled that he was talking with a woman, but no one said, "What do you seek?" or "Why are you talking with her?" So the woman left her water jar and went away into the town and said to the people, "Come, see a man who told me all that I ever did. Can this be the Christ?" They went out of the town and were coming to him. And we'll scroll on down here, verse 39. Many Samaritans from that town believed in him because of the woman's testimony. "He told me all that I ever did." So when the Samaritans came to him, they asked him to stay with them, and he stayed there 2 days. And many more believed because of his word. They said to the woman, "It is no longer because of what you said that we believe, for we have heard for ourselves, and we know that this is indeed the Savior of the world." Now, did you notice that when Jesus finally revealed himself to the woman and she grasped it, that he's the Messiah, she left her water jug. Didn't need it anymore. Okay, she left her water jug there at the well. That little detail that John throws in there is like she got it. And she has this living water within. And so she leaves her water jug there. And what does she do? She goes back to the village and tells everybody about Jesus, that she found the Messiah. And she brings them all out to meet Jesus. And Jesus stays there for a couple of days, and the people begin to believe and become part of this fellowship, if you will. Now, does this remind you of anything? What did Andrew do? He went and found Peter. What did Philip do? He went and found Nathanael. What does the woman at the well do? She went and called her whole village to come meet Jesus. See, one of the things that we see as we go through the Gospel of John is that when somebody receives this life, comes into this fellowship with Jesus and this communion with the Father through the Spirit, then you can't help but go invite somebody else into it. You can't help but say, "Hey, come and, be part of it. I found the Messiah," and the joy that's there, the life that's there. And so we're seeing this kind of played out in a larger scale. And again, Jesus reveals himself to the woman, but Jesus also reveals the woman to herself. Go get your husband, and the woman's testimony. He told me all about myself. It's got to be the one. Okay, we could spend more time there, but we got to keep moving. So I want to move into chapter 5, and now we have the healing at the pool on the Sabbath. So this one, I think I mentioned it already a little bit in a lecture about the man who had been there for 38 years. And Jesus said, "Do you want to be healed?" And eventually tells him, "Take up his mat." Okay, well, people see the guy, the leadership, the Jewish leadership sees the guy carrying his mat on the Sabbath, and they want to know what's up with this. Look at verse 11. But the man answered them, "The man who healed me, that man said to me, 'Take up your bed and walk.'" They asked him, "Who is the man who said to you, 'Take up your bed and walk'?" Now the man who had been healed did not know who it was, for Jesus had withdrawn as there was a crowd in the place. Afterward, Jesus found him in the temple and said to him, "See, you are well. Sin no more, that nothing worse may happen to you." The man went away and told the Jews that it was Jesus who had healed him. And this was why the Jews, and everybody in the story is Jewish now, so the Jews refers to the Jewish leadership. This is why the Jews were persecuting Jesus, because he was doing these things on the Sabbath. But Jesus answered them, "My Father is working until now, and I am working." Okay, and the work of the Father on the Sabbath was traditionally understood to be giving birth and sending rain and also, death. That those are the things that God does: new life, end of life, and rain. And so Jesus is saying that he too is at work on the Sabbath. His Father is working, he is working even on the Sabbath. Well, go on down, verse 18. This was why the Jews were seeking all the more to kill him, because not only was he breaking the Sabbath, but he was even calling God his own Father, making himself equal with God. Now, the Jewish leadership is partially correct here, that he is calling God his own Father, and in that sense, he is making himself, quote unquote, equal with God, that he is claiming the same authority of God to work on the Sabbath because God is his Father. But as we read on, where the Jewish leadership is mistaken is that Jesus is not rivaling God. And so, in fact, Jesus is operating in complete unity with God the Father. So Jesus said to them, "Truly, truly, I say to you, the Son can do nothing of his own accord, but only what he sees the Father doing. For whatever the Father does, that the Son does likewise. For the Father loves his Son and shows him all that he himself is doing. And greater works than these will he show him, so that you may marvel. For as the Father raises the dead and gives them life, so also the Son gives life to whom he will. For the Father judges no one, but has given all judgment to the Son, that all may honor the Son just as they honor the Father. Whoever does not honor the Son does not honor the Father who sent him. Truly, truly, I say to you, whoever hears my word and believes him who sent me has eternal life. He does not come into judgment, but has passed from death to life." And so the emphasis there in terms of the unity of the Father and the Son, and that Jesus is the Son, yes, that gives him the authority to work on the Sabbath, yes, but is he a rival son who is trying to rebel against the Father? No. That Jesus is the obedient Son who operates in conformity and unity with the Father and only does what the Father shows him to do. And he gives life, and he will give life to the dead. If we read on, we would see that this life-giving work of the Son points to resurrection from the dead, but also new life now. And however people treat the Son, that shows their regard for the Father. And so if you diss the Son, you diss the Father. If you honor the Son, then you honor the Father. Okay, so that's it for this kind of mini lecture. We're going to close this one off, and then we're going to take a look at the raising of Lazarus, and then also the Jesus statement, "I am the way and the truth and the life." But we'll do that in the next lecture.